and welcome back to the Freebooters Network. My name is Dael Kingsmill and I am here to guide you through the Newbie's Guide to Warhammer 40k. This is a little series where I, a total noob, learn the lore of Warhammer 40k, beginning sort of at the beginning of time and going through to the Horus Heresy. I'm learning that for the first time, and I am relaying it to you as I learn it so that other newbies can learn along with me. Because it's a daunting universe and we need to somehow find everything out, right? So, if you haven't seen any of these episodes before, I highly recommend going back to the beginning. I'm going to throw up a card in the top corner so you can watch through and catch up with us here. Because boy oh boy are things getting exciting. When last we left our heroes, Horus had just been turned to chaos. Magnus tried to stop him by appearing in his dreams psychically, but it was too late. Horus had already made up his mind. He thought, the Emperor sucks and I'm gonna kill him and take over, and then I'll be in charge, and chaos and I will live in harmony. Harmony with chaos. That sounds likely. So now what was Horus to do? There's a huge honking army between him and the Emperor. How's he gonna take him down? He knows that he has Lorgar and the Word Bearers on side. The Word Bearers look like this for any fellow newbies. So hey, there's an army that you're familiar with. Horus's peeps look like this. There's another one. We're gonna be doing that this episode so that you know who's who in the coming episodes. So Horus thinks that the first thing he needs to do is get a couple of the other Primarchs to join his team. Because really, if it's just him and Lorgar trying to take down everyone, that just seems like bad strategizing. And Horus is not a bad strategizer. He is a war master. It's even in his title. War Master. So the first person that Horus attempts to turn, or succeeds to turn, because it's pretty easy, is Angron. Angron, you might remember, is the Primarch who was essentially kidnapped by the Emperor anyway. He was like a gladiator in slavery on his planet, and then he was gonna die honorably with all his buds, and he turned the Emperor down and was like, I'm just gonna die here, it'll be great. But the Emperor stole him. So Angron, not the Emperor's biggest fan. And then even more than that, tensions are running extra high, because Angron has these little implant things that make him extra aggressive. It's probably why his name is Angron, because he's so angry. These have a name, I can't remember it. I'm gonna call them aggro darts. Angron starts implanting his Space Marine soldiers, who look like this, with these aggro darts, so that they'll be extra, like, bloodthirsty in battle and stuff. And it makes them really good at battle, but also probably just, like, isn't great for your health. And the Emperor didn't approve, and he said, you have to stop doing that now. And Angron said, no. So the Emperor sends Leman Russ and the Space Wolves, who look like this, to go and put a stop to it by force. And it doesn't go great. There's this whole thing that happens where Leman Russ and Angron have one-on-one combat, and Leman Russ is trying to use it as an opportunity to, like, teach Angron a lesson, because sure, Leman Russ is bested in the single combat, but it also gives opportunity for all of the Space Wolves, for all of Leman Russ's dudes, to surround Angron, and they could shoot him down before he actually kills Leman Russ. And Leman's like, oh, see, you get it? You get the message? Like, in your aggression, you might be, like, strong and beat people and stuff, but, like, you're still, like, you're losing the strategy and whatever. And Angron just doesn't get it. And so Leman Russ is like, you know what? I give up, and tells everyone to stand down, and he leaves. And Angron still doesn't get it and just thinks that he won. Which, I mean, ultimately at this point he kinda did. So Leman and the Space Wolves have to go back to the Emperor and be like, yeah, that didn't work. At which point the Emperor sends Horus to put a stop to the aggro darts, right? I know how to describe the aggro darts. They're like the thing, the little implants that make the Reds from Dark Angel extra powerful, but also, like, really unstable. Did I just make a more obscure reference in order to explain something? Okay. But, as we all know, Horus has already turned to chaos at this point, so this was a big mistake on the Emperor's part. Horus goes and he basically says to Angron, yo, buddy, brother, oh mine, you don't like the Emperor? He wants you to take out your aggro darts? Nah man, I would never make you take out your aggro darts. Give all your dudes aggro darts if you join my team. Angron is on Horus's side. it was really fairly easy to convince him. Slightly less easy to convince was Fulgrim. Fulgrim, who you might remember was kind of all about like progress and industry and the arts. See, now Fulgrim, in the early days of the Great Crusade, had a very small faction of Space Marines who, by the way, look like this. And so he and Horus were grouped together while they were doing a bunch of different campaigns. And they became bestie buddy brothers during this time because they were hanging out all the time. And so Fulgrim, who, even though he was like pretty dedicated and like a good guy and stuff, he was already in a position where he was gonna be a little bit easier to influence for Horus just because they were so close. Except there was one problem. That Fulgrim also had another bestest buddy in all the world. That was Iron Hands Luke. What's his name? Ferrus Manus. Ferrus Manus and Fulgrim got along really well because they both had really similar interests, and then at some point they decided that they were going to each try to forge like the best weapon ever. And they had names. What are the weapons' names? So they made these weapons, Forgebreaker and Fireblade, and they were both like super great weapons, and they traded them and they became each of their signature weapons. It was like, oh, look at this gift from my best buddy brother. So here was this other figure on the other side of Horus, the opposite angel, devil angel, shoulder, conscience. This analogy has gotten away from me. Ferrus Manus, who is very, very loyal to the Emperor, is on the opposite side, sort of an equal weight to Horus in a lot of ways. But Fulgrim was leading a campaign in this late stage, just before the Horus Heresy, on a planet with a name. Why don't I remember anything's names? Was leading a campaign on a planet called Leyrin. I think the planet is called Leyrin. The events are called the Cleansing of Leyrin. And during this, at some point, Fulgrim finds this sword, this silver sword, and he starts using that instead of Fireblade, which, hey, red flags. And oh boy, turns out that sword is full of Chaos Demon. It's got a demon of Slanesh in it, all up in there, and it slowly starts to influence Fulgrim until his desire for like perfection and progress leaves him super frustrated with the Emperor, and it makes it much, much easier for Horus to lure him to the dark side. So now we've got Horus, we've got Lorgar, we've got Fulgrim, and we've got Angron. Next was Mortarion. Mortarion took a little bit more convincing because, again, he's a pretty moral dude. He doesn't like want to work with chaos exactly. But Horus just keeps coming back, keeps just tapping away, reminding him that, hey, maybe there's other options. I don't know, you know? And then the minute that Horus finds out that Mortarion is kind of beginning to get fed up with the Emperor and thinks of the Emperor as being almost like Mortarion's own like tyrant adopted father back in Zombieland, Horus uses that and he just he wears him down. He manages to convince him to come on over to the chaos side of thinking. Mortarion's dudes, by the way, look like that. They're like the Death God? Question mark? After this, it doesn't take too much to convince Perturabo, obviously, as well as Conrad Kurz and the other guy, Alfarius, to come and join them. At which point, Horus in full has about half of the Imperium's forces on his side. And this is before anyone's even really noticed that he's become a bad guy. He and the Primarchs that he's corrupted have just started spreading these little seeds of dissent. As someone reminded me a few episodes ago that was the word that I was looking for. Thank you for that, by the way. And all of these newly chaosed Primarchs are like keeping tabs on who in their armies is too loyal to the Emperor to be swayed into worshipping chaos instead. At this point you might be thinking, but Dael, how has Horus had all this time with which to convince people and slowly worm his way into their brains and plant chaos there, when we know for a fact that Magnus already knew he was turning evil? Magnus was trying to stop him. How come he hasn't stopped him yet? Well, let me tell you. Magnus, the minute he finds out that Horus has turned evil, tries to use his sorcery mind powers to like astral project himself across the galaxy into the Emperor's palace, and in doing so accidentally like blows out all the power and breaks the webway that the Emperor has been building this whole time. That's the whole reason that he steps down from the crusade in the first place. And so Magnus accidentally like busts a hole in it, and all these demons can flood in suddenly. They start like taking over people, and all these humans get dead because of all the demons. Magnus feels soups guilty about it, but now the Emperor is so angry at Magnus that he doesn't believe Magnus when Magnus tells him, hey, Horus, your favored son, has turned to chaos and he's gonna try to kill you. No, instead, the Emperor sends Leman Russ to go and arrest Magnus for all his sorcery stuff that's technically forbidden, and then Horus convinces the Space Wolves that they need to just do a full-on, like, Destructo sweep of Prospero, which is the planet that Magnus has. It's like, it's a whole thing. And so in the end, Magnus ends up working with the traitors instead of the Emperor because he tried so hard to save the Emperor, and this is how he was repaid for it. I don't know why you'd turn to like chaos after that though. I feel like you should probably just become like a space hermit and just like do your own thing. Anyway, basically things aren't looking great, but they're about to get worse. Hey! So maybe you'll want to subscribe to the channel in order to join us for that next time. That sounds fun, doesn't it? It is very possible that I got a bunch of stuff wrong in this. If that is the case, let me know in the comments so that way other newbies who are watching this video can scroll down and read the comments and find out the actual, true made-up events. Once again, my name is Dael Kingsmill. You can find me over on my own channel, Monarchs Factory, where I make content on the regular. Until next time, try not to turn to chaos.